All right. Hello, we are here with Despina. She is the founder of this amazing page. Can you pronounce your Instagram handle for us?
It's Depy Zepo.
Depy Zepo. It
Yeah.
is the coolest Instagram page ever. She makes ceramic art inspired by Greek heritage and Hellenic culture, and she makes the beautiful evil eyes out of glass and ceramic vessels and a lot of amazing things. And so today we're going to be talking with Despina and learning about all of her cool creations. So Despina, go ahead, introduce
Hi.
yourself just really quick.
I'm Despina Papadeas, and I'm from Florida originally. My family is from Greece. My mom is from two islands, Limnos and Halki, on both her parents' sides, and then my dad is from right outside of Sparta. So yeah, I moved to Chicago in 2015. No, 2009. It's been 15 years. 2009, crazy. And I have my own studio in Logan Square. I make decorative and functional ceramics, just to kind of like, keep the community spirit alive. I like to do a lot of like functional dishware for dinner parties. I'm loving to curate a dinner party and having friends over, like kind of, I don't know. It's like very what's the word?
You spread your wings far and you create a lot of really cool stuff. I love that. You're always experimenting, and we have to show you. Oh my God, sorry, Ty's barking. But we are going to see like some new creations that you're working on today too. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been a good time.
yeah, it's so cool. I love getting inspired by like all the amazing colors that you use and everything. So I love, and I can't wait to show everyone.
You.
So going back to your roots, because you're like this very successful artist here in Chicago. A lot of people know you. Like you're pretty famous, not to
Oh my
toot your
God.
horn or anything, but so tell us, we want to know like the tea on how your creative soul like started. Like what's your first memory from childhood or just like some like early on in life? Like what was that one moment where you were kind of like, oh my God, like I love art?
That's a nice question. Um, I, well, the first memories I have of people making things is at my yaya's house. I'm named after my yaya Despina. She's from Limnos, and her dad, like we come from a very long line of like artisans and blacksmiths and woodworkers. And so her father, who died very like before I was born, shortly before I was born, would have all like made all of these handicrafts out of things that of his house. Like he made
Whoa.
this bottle opener that looked like a donkey, but it was out of a Budweiser can from the 70s. Or like he
Whoa.
made, oh, I could grab one actually and show you. Hold
Oh yeah, we want to see. How cool is that? Like it's just so cool. Me too. I'm named after Maya Christina, and she was also like an artist too. So I love like learning about like the stories of our grandparents and how like we're getting the inspo from them. And oh my God, I love
it's
this.
really connected. To be connected to your culture like so immediately like that is so sweet. So like he from
Totally.
scrap wood he made this sitting chair that you could put your sewing needles in, and then your thread on the side, and there's a hook in the back for your scissors.
That is so like smart.
It's, well, everything that he made was practical, and it was from things around the house that they had, because when they came to the country in 1923 they had nothing, you know what I mean, they
Yeah,
had
yeah.
negative nothing. So he would like he was a cook at Columbia University, and he would take the flour sacks home, and that's what my broyaya would make everyone's clothes out of.
The
So
blue sacks.
yeah, I know, it's crazy. And
Wow.
this is a spoon that he carved, and
Wow. Out of
it's
wood?
really out of wood. Yeah, it's like a soft wood, and it's
Wow.
so ornate. It's beautifully done, and on the back there is in pencil 1923, the 15th of June,
That is really
and
cool.
then something I can't really I should have that translated. But yeah, it's like, so I grew up with like handicrafts in the home,
I
um,
love that.
which like
And,
really
and
set me on.
especially for like a kid, like
Yeah.
seeing that and being around it, you were probably like, whoa.
Yeah, well, it was just like it taught me that like I don't need to buy anything. I can make everything that I want. And so I think like having that as my first exposure to creativity, and then alongside that, my yaya would stitch all of our Greek folk dancing costumes for the church.
Yeah.
And so she taught me how to sew and knit and crochet when I was really, really young. And so you say capital A art. My art was more like textiles. It was more like
Hmm.
craft centered. And it's really like informed kind of what I'm doing now, which I
I
love.
love it. So I know like we all go through this like journey of like life. Like, was it always like blatantly obvious for you that you wanted to like have a ceramic business? Can you kind of tell us like the
Oh.
origins of like your Instagram page and like your amazing website? Like, how did you like figure that part out in like that journey of your life? Like, what was happening? Like, what led you to pursuing it?
Yeah, this wasn't the goal. Like my current situation wasn't the goal, which I think is fun and weird and cool. So when I went to school for like textile design and graphic design. So I had like a background in and kind of like more creative applications for knitting and weaving and crochet, not just for, like clothing, but
Mhm.
for art and installations and stuff. So
Yes, 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 yes,
after after I graduated college, I moved to Chicago and got a job at Anthropologie designing their windows and their in-store displays. So I did that for 6 years, and I met my friend and mentor Aaron, who owns his own ceramic business. And after Anthropologie, I had multiple jobs in the arts sector. I was working for the Art Institute of Chicago. I was working for Renegade Craft Fair, and so I kind of like saw this handmade craft movement kind of like uprising since like 2007 or so.
Mhm.
So I would like always have like a side hustle to any job that I had, doing crafts and selling them at markets. So I would like for a long time, my gig was making chalkboards in interesting shapes. So I would buy wood from Home Depot, use my tools at Anthropologie to cut out elephants and birds and squirrels and
Oh, that's
everything. It
cool.
was fun. So that got me into like fabricating and then selling my stuff. And then right before the pandemic, 2019, Aaron, my friend from Anthro, moved back to Chicago and was like, "I want to hire you to be in charge of my like studio manager for his studio." And I was like, "Buddy, I don't do ceramics. My high school pottery teacher told me never to touch clay again because I was so bad." And I think he's dead now.
Don't
So
listen to your high school art teachers.
yeah, exactly. So
Unless I was your high school art teacher and you're one of my
then and
students.
then yeah, exactly. I'm sure you were much more complimentary than Mr. Ludwig, but Mr. Ludwig did not believe in me, and I proved him wrong because so
Yeah,
when I
you
started
did.
working for Aaron, he like taught me everything, and from there I was like, well, this is interesting, and I could do it. And at the time, I was working for him and a freelance wedding florist. And then the pandemic happened and all the weddings went away. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this now. And that's when I really got my Instagram going in like 2020. And I just decided just to be myself on the internet. I wasn't gonna like try to be a faceless account or like an artiste. I'm just me. And
I love
I
it.
make, yeah. So
I love
that's
that about you. It's so fun and like authentic. And it's like in this day and age where like everyone is trying to put up this like persona of like, like I'm this perfect,
yeah.
like
No.
abstract artist. It's like you're just like so free to be yourself, you
Yeah.
know? And
I
that's
get
and
it.
that's like so beautiful because I think like having the courage to truly express yourself and to just like authentically show up as you. I feel like everyone on Instagram is like almost like a carbon copy of each other. And it's like refreshing to see someone like being brave and courageous. And so I think it's like really cool.
Thanks, Christina. That's sweet of you to say. Yeah, I don't know. When I'm on Instagram, I'm just like screaming into a computer, So I just like don't. I find it a little like cringe to have like a false pretense about myself. Like I can only be me. So
Right.
that's really nice of you to say.
I love that. And I think your audience really feels the energy. And that's why you've had so much the success that you've had. It's because of that. Because people are like, we know who we're getting from. You know,
Yeah.
we know her, we're her friend, and they feel that closeness and that connection to you. You know, they feel that. And so that's why they decide to support your shop. And, you know, you have a lot of collectors that, you know, every run that you do, they like want something, you know, which is
It's
really,
cool. It is. I
yeah.
never like. I really never saw this for myself. Like for a long time, the imposter syndrome was very real. Of just like, well, who the heck am I to like think that anyone would want to spend hundreds of dollars on one thing that I make? But it turns out that's fake. And like, if I put in my intention and my whole like spirit behind something, it's really nice that other people can see it and like have it tied to their cultural ties. Like I've met so many interesting Greek people through this. Yeah, it's been, and not even just Greek, but like, our culture is so ancient. There's so many different other cultures throughout the like Levant region that really identify with same spirit and the same symbols and the same kind of like underpinnings of cultural practices that it's like,
Definitely.
it's
You
been
connect
cool.
with you connect with a lot of people
I
that
feel lucky. I feel really lucky because what everyone doesn't realize is I'm just a freak, and
I love
it's
it.
like
No,
fun.
like seriously, like we all are, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Like everyone is in their own way. And it's just refreshing to see someone that's so like just like this is who I am and like I love that about you. It's like so it's like nice, you know? You know, because
Thanks.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just people feel that energy, and we're in an age too. I think there's this new, like everything comes and goes in waves. Like now, like people are so over like the regurgitations and like the fakeness of social media that it's like it's refreshing to finally like find someone who is brave to like produce and be free and to express themselves and like be authentic. That authenticity is really what our souls are craving from one another, you know, that like real true
True.
spirit, you know. So I think it's really, really great. And I love that. So I really, moving on to our next topic. We're creating a show together. We're having a group exhibition with all these amazing women artists from around the country, and Despina is going to be one of them. And so the whole theme of the show is like how we're creating freedom in our daily life and how we're like drawing inspiration from our roots and culture in Greece and how we kind of weave that into like our reality like every single day here in Chicago or wherever we live here or after we immigrated from Greece and how we're kind of experiencing that freedom, that culture, that authenticity, you know, like the people in Greece have like such a deep love and admiration and appreciation for nature, for food, for each other, for like being hospitable. You know, I know you mentioned that with like even with your dinner parties and your plates, you know, that hospitality runs like deep in our veins. And so we just want to, I want to hear like your perspective, like how are you like creating, like how is your art a reflection of like your experience like from Greece and like how you're creating this sense of freedom and peace in your daily life here in
Oh,
Chicago? I don't know. That was kind of worded a little crazy, but
no, I totally understand
you
because
get it.
it's we are like at least for me, I am a product of everything that came before me, and I'm just like in the last I would say 10 years starting to pay attention to it all. Like there's a difference for me between just like living my life in the culture that I was raised in, but then also actively like researching it and engaging in it. When we moved to Florida, when my family moved to Florida, there's a big assimilation thing that happened. So it feels really good to like spend my time. Like freedom to me is freedom of my time and
Mm-hmm.
being able to use my time as I want. I feel like time is like my number one commodity right now. And so the way that I see my work kind of like intertwining with this bigger idea of like what it is to exist within our culture, like outside of our culture is or outside of
Mm-hmm.
our space is basically just bringing like the principles that I was raised with into the work that I do. So that's why I like to make things that are functional.
Mm-hmm.
And because like to me, if something serves a function, then maybe there's a ritual around it. And ritual at the end of the day, like our culture was like based on rituals for like so many 100,000 millions years, whatever. So I'm going to be making ceramic vessels that are directly inspired. Like the forms themselves are ancient forms that you see at places like the Cycladic Art Museum in Athens or the National Archaeological Museum. You can see so many of them at the Chicago Art Institute, the Met, everywhere. But I love like for example, this is one I've made previous, right? That has kind of the bulbous jug with the long stem and the handle. I had been making this, like I'd seen one in a book my uncle had about ancient Greece. And so it was one of the first vessels that I made, just kind of like experimenting with how I would do this, like with my hands, not on the pottery wheel. And then 2 years later, I go to Greece and the exact replica from, 6,000 years ago that comes from the North Aegean Islands where my guy is from. So it's like, it's partially intuition based, it's partially like culturally inspired, but for me, like using the same forms that like humans have been using for years and our ancestors, like it's really it's trippy, it's really trippy. And so
Right. I was gonna say it's beautiful that you're able to like bring it back into 2025, in this digital age like we're talking about, of like we have so much accessibility to so many different items. We're kind of overwhelmed with the amount of items there are in our culture. So I think it's just really cool to like really hold on to these roots and these like ancestral vessels that have these rituals attached to them and were so meaningful and potent, at the time, and bringing it back into modern day and like bringing it back into people's houses, like even now, and you're weaving it back in and like relevant again.
And that's so I think exactly that, like because there's an oversaturation of decor, and just like things. To
Mm-hmm.
me, it's like, okay, how can we like sharpen our focus, have special objects in our home, have a little bit more meaning? So I'm going to like be creating these kind of ancient-esque vessels, but I want to decorate the surface of them in more, like modern themes, maybe modern symbols. My interpretation of ancient symbols could be really cool. Use of color, use of texture, use of pattern. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the ways everyone like pulls from their specific inspirations and how all of that is going to play at the show. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, we have a lot of cool stuff coming. And we have a lot of, about like the spiritual, emotional like connection to like nature. There's a lot of like sunset inspired pieces because I feel like for a lot of us in Greece, like nature is like a huge part of like what brings us that inner feeling of like joy and like freedom is like seeing the sunset, feeling the water, feeling nature. So Despina, do you have like an experience of nature that you want to like?
Oh my God, the beach. The beach is so important to me. The beach is
Yeah, do you
so
weave
important.
that? Do you weave that into your work in any way?
Yeah, I do. Well, I mean, in some like very overt ways, right? I use a lot of fish imagery. I use a lot
Yes,
of shell imagery. I
yes.
was raised on a beach. I was raised in Daytona Beach. I'm
Nice.
from an island, like a couple different islands. So the
Mm-hmm.
beach, yeah, is really important to me. And I'm showing you earlier. So I've been melting glass into ceramic vessels. And
Mm-hmm.
this, to me, this is just like,
It's like the ocean and sand.
100%. And
Oh.
I fell in love with it. This technique is so weird and interesting and volatile. Using like fire, like these materials that I use can only be cured by fire. And so I think about like my ancestors before me were blacksmiths. So it all feels very connected to like the root of what has made me me.
Yeah, I love that.
And then to use fire to make something so like delicate and pretty, it's just
Yeah.
like, there's a it's an interesting correlation. And I'm like, I knew you would like this one because you're sea obsessed like I am. So
Yeah. Definitely. And I love like the merging of your love for like antiquity and these ancient vessels and these, these stories of like functional vases, but then you're also like taking like your love for nature and like the ocean and that serenity, that peace, that freedom that you feel when you're like in the water and all that. And you're kind of like
Bring it
making
in the house.
baby. And I love that so much. And one of the vessels that I personally collected from you, it's like this beautiful, like big plate. And it's like,
Oh
I'm like, I
yeah.
brought it to show you guys, but it's like half blue and half beige. And there's like a golden rim. And to me, the reason why I bought it was because it reminded me of the ocean and like the sand, and like the gold is like the sunlight reflecting on the surface. So I think it's really cool how like it's indirectly woven through your work,
Mhm.
and people feel the energy of nature in the ceramics, but it's not like in your face, but it's more like up to the interpreter, with the colors you use, with the, the symbolisms, with the shells. I have a shell and the little fishes.
I
So,
love little fish. Well, yeah, and you think too about like the materials I'm using. Clay is mud. Like comes from the earth, and glass is sand.
yeah,
So that inherently there are like organic elements within this. I myself am incredibly organic. I don't like a harsh line. I don't like a sharp turn. And
yeah,
I'm making it into fluffy. So it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it works for me.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's like what makes you and your artwork so unique and special and like different. And that's why, so many people love collecting your work, is because it's you in this original, handcrafted piece. And it's just like there's no one else on earth that can create that. You can't buy something that like so much love, like history, memories, all of this stuff. That's why we invest in and collect in these original
Yeah.
works of art, is because it has like so many layers of meaning and storytelling. And it's just like the value is intrinsic and it's like invaluable.
The
It's
energy,
not like, yeah,
yeah,
you
it has
can't just buy this at Crate and Barrel. It's like it's or Restoration Hardware. It's like super special stuff.
Yeah, I think so too. Anything that someone makes with their hands to me is already going to be priceless, but by comparison to something you find at Target. Not to say like those were also probably made by hand, by the way, by like people who are very underpaid for their skill and their labor. But there's something to like knowing the story from where your objects come from that is like you're saying, really, really special to me.
Right. And I honestly too, when I am talking to people about like how to start collecting art, because like some people too, like they've never, lived with decorative objects or artwork in their homes. And it's like you don't know where to start. And I always say like you have to have like a memory or like a personal like connection, like and want to live with this thing every single day. And when you look at it, it should remind you of a cherished memory that you've had in your own life. And so when people like invest in, like, for example, one of my ocean paintings, it's like they've been to Greece, they've felt the energy, they've experienced it themselves, and they loved it so much that like they want to experience it every single day in their house and like
Right.
live with it. And so that's the thing with the ceramics too. It's like when you every time you like open your cabinet and you like take out this little like vessel, it's like more than just like a plate. It's like an experience.
Yeah.
It's like this daily ritual, even for you in your house. Like it's like you take out this plate, it's extra special. Maybe you put like your olive oil and like your olives in the plate, and then you're like eating it, and it just like adds that extra layer of like making your life more like intentional, valuable.
Well, I'm
Like your
glad you say
memory,
that.
you're pulling from memories.
Yeah, I agree. Like intentional really sticks out to me because I feel like in terms of starting an art collection or there's something I agree with you that like when you look at a piece of whether it's functional or decorative art or fine art, like even if perhaps there's something in it that just like sparks something in you. You know what I mean? It could just be the slightest twinge. But if you feel like some kind of like intuitive movement within yourself to me, that symbolizes and it expresses some kind of like significance, a tie to it. You know what I mean? And that is like, in my experience, intuition, like full
Yeah.
intuition. And with all these devices and distractions in front of us, we are, as a society, I think, not as tuned into our intuition, our personal intuition.
Yes.
I wasn't like, I feel like I didn't turn on until like 2017 when I realized that like inside of me, I have this like inherent pull to things, my intuition, which is usually always correct and always guides me to something bigger. I just think that like someone who's never been to the beach could look at your gorgeous painting behind you and be like, oh my God, like that stirs something within me that I don't recognize, but I want to, it's teaching me more about myself. And
Right, right. And I
really
think I that's actually a valid point too, because I was thinking like because like our ancestors, like it could be like a like this thing inside of you from your ancestors that maybe you
stored
never
memory.
experienced, but like some human before you has. And I believe too, like all of our souls are connected. And like every human on this earth that ever existed, like we all have like God living within us and we all have the same like energy exuding out of us. And it's like, even if you've never really experienced it before, you can see a piece of art and you can feel connected to like the grander human experience and like feel it on a
Yeah.
spiritual level. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, go to museums. People need to go to
Yeah.
museums, see art. Even if it's like
Yeah.
a lot of museums have their public collections available on the internet just to scroll through, you know? So there's a
True.
lot of ways to like get inspired and immerse ourselves in something that is outside of our everyday life that might, you know, flip a switch and like connect us to something bigger than just what's in our, you know, our current view.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, Despina, before we kind of sign off here, what are you planning to show in the exhibition? Like, can
Well,
you just describe, or are you going to show those vessels you showed us?
yeah, I'll just put this in this hand and I'll put this in this hand as kind of guiding shapes and guiding vessels. You're gonna, with my vessels, they're gonna be fat bottomed. Okay. They're like me.
I love it.
They're going to be organic shapes. It, I think that like what I'm gonna do is have a play of glass and ceramic in kind of like ancient inspired glazes and finishes, but then with like inscribed with more like modern symbols. I
Cool.
don't exactly, you know, have like a lot of my work. I don't sketch it out. It just kind of, I sketch in the clay. So I'll have a big
Hmm.
clay and I'll make a couple of small models. I'll tweak it what I like. And then I take the time and like really, I'll turn on my music and I just tune out the world and I want to make big, big sculptures. So it's going to be fun. A lot of what I make in from my personal practice and my business is meant to be like um, consumed by a lot of people. So it's a lot of plates. It's a lot of like cups, paint palettes, things you can use at your house. But for this one, I want to make really special pieces that feel intentional. I want them to feel really like culturally inspired. But I want anyone to see them and be like, I want that in my house. I want to eat soup
Right.
out of it. I
And
want to
I
pour
love
wine.
that. I love that because it's kind of like this mergence of like functional meets like fine art. You know, it's like this functional art piece, but it's also like this like fine art piece. You
Yeah.
know, and there's like a distinguishable difference, but it's like you're really marrying the two together like in such a cool way, which I really like.
Thanks. Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't know if you could glean it from this video, but I don't really fit into the fine art world as it is right now. I'm a little too like big and boisterous for how sophisticated it is. So anything I can do to tear down that barrier is great.
Honestly, I love it. And that's kind of like my goal too. I think with my art, it's like I don't feel like I fit into that like fine art box
Yeah.
either because you know what? At the end of the day, I'd rather my paintings live in a home and not a gallery. So that's my whole philosophy. Like I don't make art for it to be like seen in a museum gallery setting. I make my art so it can live in houses. And I
Yeah.
think you have that same mindset too. And a lot of the artists that are going to be showing in this show, like we want our work to be in spaces where people are interacting with it every single day and like a more intimate like homey way.
Yeah.
Um, and not just like experiencing it like as like this like out like not
Something with a wall.
attainable, like this elitist, you know what I mean?
That's not us.
Not us.
That's not us. No,
Right.
I don't think so either. I think there's you said intimacy, and I think that's like really the fact that people like take what I make and like hold it with their hands is crazy to me. I love it. It's so fun, and does create a kind of community in there. So I'm really, yeah, I'm excited to see what everyone brings, and just like, yeah, it's going to start a really interesting conversation because we have a lot of different perspectives. It seems like we have a good age range of people.
Yes.
Which I love an intergenerational party,
Yeah.
so like let's
Yes.
hang
It's going to
out.
be so cool and so fun. So on March 1st, we're going to have a panel discussion with all the artists at the gallery. So in Hinsdale at the gallery, it's called Celestial Art Curation Gallery. We're going to have a talk, and basically like this conversation we're having now, but it's going to be Maria, Theodora, Zoe, and all of the other artists who are able to make it in town that weekend. And we're all going to have this like open, fiery conversation about, our experience with freedom in Greece and our life and how what our art means to us and how we're creating this spiritual freedom within our lives like on a daily basis through creating and sharing our work. So everyone watching, you are invited to join us from 3 to 5 for that discussion. And then we're going to flow right into like a reception. So from 5 to 8, we're doing like hors d'oeuvres and then wine and like just like elevated like little art party. So that'll be really fun. So you can bring friends, family, anyone that is interested. It'll be a really special night. I'm excited.
I'm excited. We're gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll make a big wine jug we could all drink wine out of.
Oh my God. I love it. I love it. Oh my God. Okay. Well, thank you, Despina. We love you. And we'll see you. You're coming, right? To the
I'm
talk.
coming. I'll be there. Yeah, I'm gonna be here.
Oh yeah. We're excited. Okay.
Yes, thank you for this.
All right. Bye, everybody.